Anderson was a hunter, nature enthusiast, and chronicler of wildlife. The story highlights the emotional bond between human beings and animals. The narrator's wife shares affection with a wild bear and they get attached to each other. This is how the narrator finds it difficult to make any arrangement for the sloth bear to inhabit in the forested areas. I will begin with Bruno, my wife's pet sloth bear. I got him for her by accident. So, this is what the narrator talks about. He is talking about the sloth bear that he had rescued when he went to the fields for hunting. So, this is how Bruno, who is a sloth bear, was gifted to his wife. We put it one of the gunny bags. We put it in one of the gunny bags. This is how the sloth bear was carried back home. When I got back to Bangalore, I duly presented it to my wife. She was delighted. She at once put a colored ribbon around its neck. So this is how it was accepted by the narrator's wife, and she was extremely happy to have Bruno. And as it was gifted to her, she christened it to be Bruno. Bruno soon took to drinking milk from a bottle. It was but a step further, and within a very few days he started eating and drinking everything else. So this is how we can mark that Bruno had started eating anything and everything that was available to him. The bear became very attached to our two Alsatian dogs and to all the children of the tenants living in our bungalow. So we can know that Bruno was very friendly, and it got easily attached to the two Alsatian dogs owned by the narrator. There were many children of the tenants living in their bungalow, so this is how Bruno used to play with them. He was left quite free in his younger days and spent his time in playing, running into the kitchen, and going to sleep in a bed. So this is how we can say that Bruno had freedom to loiter around and be wherever it used to find itself comfortable. And this is how the people who were fond of Bruno spent a lot of time playing with him. One day an accident befell him. Now what was this accident all about, and what had happened to Bruno? Was it difficult for him to recover from that state? I put down poison barium carbonate to kill the rats and mice that had got into my library. So this is what we could mark, that it was the barium carbonate that had been really injurious for his health. As we read further, out came his medical books, and a feverish reference to index began. What poison did you say, sir? This is what is a conversation between the veterinary and the narrator. So here when asked, the narrator stated that it was barium carbonate that was consumed by Bruno, and the symptoms that could be marked here are paralysis, treatments of injection. This is what was expected to be done so that Bruno could recover soon. And the doctor was ready to treat Bruno, and Bruno, although was not in a good condition, took some time to recover from his state of paralysis. Another time he found nearly 1 gallon of old engine oil. So this is the second incident that we can mark, where we can read that Bruno had consumed engine oil, okay, and the narrator had drained from the sump of the Studebaker, and was keeping as a weapon against the inroads of termites. So this is what the narrator used to do when he found lot of termites. He promptly drank the lot, means the entire gallon was consumed by Bruno, but it had no ill effects whatever. So here we can see that Bruno was fortunate that he did not fall sick or had any symptoms of illness after consuming the gallon of old engine oil. The months rolled on and Bruno had grown many times the size he was when he came. He had equaled the Alsatians in height and had even outgrown them, but was just as sweet, but as mischievous, just as playful. So we can say that Bruno was really friendly and playful. He used to enjoy the company of the other Alsatian dogs, and he had grown to equal the size of Alsatians in height. And we can say that he had even outgrown them. It seemed to be an enormous creature now, bigger than the Alsatian dogs. Then my son and I advised my wife, and friends advised her too, to give Baba, that is Bruno. Okay, this is the nickname of Bruno. Baba to the zoo at Mysore. So this is how the narrator and his family members were advised to send Bruno to the zoo at Mysore, because it was now an enormous creature to be kept at home. He was getting too big to keep at home. After some weeks of such advice, she at last consented. So it was very difficult for the narrator to explain it to his wife that Bruno was not supposed to be kept at home anymore, because it was too big and it was unsafe for them to take good care of him. And even the neighbors and the visitors who visited them were frightened of Bruno. So after great efforts, the narrator was able to convince his wife, and she consented. We all missed him greatly, but in a sense we were relieved. My wife was inconsolable. Why was she inconsolable? Because she was really fond and attached to Bruno. She wept and fretted. For the first few days she would not eat a thing. Then she wrote a number of letters to the curator, who was a zookeeper, who used to take good care of Bruno. Now when Bruno was sent to the zoo, narrator's wife used to often visit the zoo, and he requested the curator if they could return Bruno back to them. How was Baba? Back came the replies. Well, but fretting, he refuses food too. Means even Bruno did not eat or drink anything because he missed the narrator's wife. So this is how we can see that there was a great bond between the animal and the human beings, and this is how Bruno did not want to live in the zoo. Once home, a squad of coolies were engaged for a special work in our compound. An island was made for Baba. Now once when Baba was back home, that is Bruno was written by the zookeepers or the curator, it was something that they had to think about, where to make an arrangement so that Baba can live comfortably. So an island was made for him. It was 20 feet long and 15 feet wide, and was surrounded by a dry pit or moat, 6 feet wide and 7 feet deep. A wooden box that once housed fowls was brought and put on the island for Baba to sleep in at night. So few arrangements were made at their place so that Baba can live comfortably. So they bought the wooden box, they bought the other things that Baba would need to live a comfortable life. read the story and try to answer the questions in your own words.